Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm glad to welcome all of you to this special session on the theme of Forging Stronger Ties, a look at India-Japan defense relations as a part of the International Diploma course on Diplomacy and Indian Foreign Policy conducted by the Tillotoma Foundation. I'm Kamakshi Wason, Chief Operating Officer and Director of Academic Programs at the Tillotoma Foundation. Tillotoma Foundation works globally in the areas of international relations, diplomacy, area studies, gender, environmental, financial, scientific, strategic, and defense policy. To begin with, I would like to especially thank Mr. Soham Das, Chairperson Director, Tillotoma Foundation, for his constant support and encouragement for the ongoing International Diploma course in Diplomacy and Indian Foreign Policy. We at the Tillotoma Foundation are committed to enhancing knowledge, promoting critical thinking, and fostering the exchange of ideas through various academic programs and research initiatives. The Indo-Pacific region has remained an important focus area of the Tillotoma Foundation in recent years. We have a dedicated Indo-Pacific Center at the Tillotoma Foundation. Over the years, the Foundation has actively cooperated with and worked with institutions, senior experts, diplomats, and researchers from Indo-Pacific. Our research on the geopolitics of the region has been featured in leading international news publications. Through this session on Forging Stronger Ties, a look at India-Japan defense relations, we aim to provide a platform for our students and researchers to gain insights and perspectives on the future trajectory of India-Japan defense relations. India and Japan have had a global and strategic partnership since 2006, and currently it is special strategic and global partnership. And it is so fascinating to see how their defense ties are evolving in the current global geopolitical landscape. With the rise of China and its assertive behavior in the region, it has become more critical for India and Japan to strengthen their defense cooperation further. As we delve deeper into the nuances of India-Japan defense relations, we hope to explore various aspects ranging from bilateral and multilateral security engagements, strategic dialogues, transfer of defense equipment and technology, cooperative research, joint exercises, and the prospects of further cooperation between the two great nations. Japan and India have a shared commitment to peace, stability, and prosperity in the Indo-Pacific region. Security and defense cooperation between these two nations is very crucial for maintaining regional stability and countering common security challenges. The Quad and other multilateral engagements, it has become more important than ever to examine the India-Japan defense relationship. Mr. Shinzo Abe, during his tenure as the Prime Minister of Japan, placed great emphasis on strengthening Japan's defense relations with India and several Southeast Asian countries to counter China's rising influence in the region. The current Prime Minister of Japan, Mr. Fumio Kishida, is continuing this policy. Mr. Modi, on the other hand, has been instrumental in enhancing India's Act East policy and developing strategic partnerships with countries like Japan. Both Japan and India have taken concrete steps to strengthen their defense cooperation over the years, including joint military exercises, maritime security cooperation, technology transfers. Well-informed and multifaceted discussions on India-Japan defense relations will help envision the future of this partnership and enable us to identify ways in which they can further expand their efforts to maintain regional stability and prosperity. There's so much more to learn from this strategic partnership, and I hope through today's discussion by our distinguished speaker, we will be able to gain deeper insights into the various dimensions of India-Japan defense relations and the way forward for this partnership in a rapidly changing global geopolitical landscape. I'm sure our special speaker for today will provide us with valuable insights into this crucial aspect of India-Japan defense relations and help us understand the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead. I'm pleased to welcome our speaker for today, Mr. Dr. Satoru Nagao, Visiting Fellow in the Pacific and Convenor Japan, Tillotoma Foundation. He is also a non-resident fellow at the Hudson Institute. Thank you, Satoru, for being here today at the Tillotoma Foundation once again to speak on this very important topic of India-Japan defense relations. It is so great to see you again and hear from you again. I would now like to request Dr. Nagao to start with this presentation. Over to you, Dr. Nagao.
Thank you very much. Yes, it is an honor for me to be here. And I'm very happy to lecture something with Tillotoma Foundation. The title is Why is India important to Japan, the US, and Australia, especially the viewpoint from Japan. So maybe India-Japan relation is main topic, but it can apply to the US and Australia. Is today's lecture. And simply said, recently this relation is very good. That is the starting point. Looks like this picture. This was a picture took last month when the Prime Minister Kishida visited India. Indeed, this year is a little special year. How special? Because January, Indian fighter jet visit Japan and conducted joint exercises in Japan with Japan's fighter jet. The name of the exercise is Via Guardian. February, the Indian Army 8th Battalion came to Japan and conducted joint exercises with Japan. In March, the Indian Air Force transport plane, which carries this 8th Battalion, came to Japan and conducted joint exercises with Japan's transport plane in Japan. And at the same time, in March, in the Indian Ocean, France organized multinational joint exercises, including all Quad members and British and Canada also. So January, February, March, all of the 3 months, India and Japan conducted joint exercises. And in March, just before the Prime Minister Kishida visit India, indeed, foreign minister and vice foreign minister visited India too. So it looks like diplomatic relation is also very active. And in April, when the G7 foreign minister meeting has happened, and there was an Indo-Pacific session. G7 is not included India, but in this Indo-Pacific session, all of the 7 countries agreed. Relation with India is most important in the Indo-Pacific. So that G7 host was Japan. So Japan organized this session, and all countries agreed relation with India is important. So every month, something has happened. And all of these events indicate that India-Japan relation is very important and progress very much, especially security area. Unfortunately, it's economic relation between two, 1% or 2% of the total trade occupied in the between the India and Japan. For India, for Japan, both sides, 1% or 2% of the total trade is this bilateral trade. So that's why economically, 2 countries' bond is not so strong. But the security area, it has progressed very strongly. So that's why this security area is very important part of the India-Japan relation. So we want to ask why. Why? That's the most important question in this topic. Why India is important to Japan? To solve this issue, the Indo-Pacific and the Quad, this concept has some point. Relation between Japan and India have long been marked by the indifferences indeed in the past, unfortunately. During the Cold War, Japan was ally of the United States, and India became de facto ally of the Soviet Union. So there is a gap of the policy between two. And in 1998, India conducted nuclear weapon test, and it is understandable, but at the same time, that time Japanese government imposed sanctions against India. So current strong bond between India and Japan has started since the 2000, when the Prime Minister Yoshiro Mori visited India, just after the President Clinton's visit in India. But that had the starting point. But the most important part to reach the current situation is 2007. The Prime Minister Shinzo Abe addressed in the Indian Parliament and announced his view towards the Indo-Pacific and the Quad. That time, in his address in Indian Parliament did not mention the exact word of the Indo-Pacific and the Quad, but the idea itself has included in his address. And since then, he explained many places the idea of the Indo-Pacific and the Quad, and finally, this has a real strategy now. He also published a short article, Asia's Democratic Security Diamond, in 2012, and that explains more detail of the Indo-Pacific and the Quad. So, view from his address in 2007 in the Indian Parliament, and his short article in the 2012, in idea of the Indo-Pacific and the Quad has the three features. Firstly, the Indo-Pacific is the region of the rising power. In the past, if we call the center of the world politics, which area of the world is center of the world politics? Maybe we need to think about the definition of the center of the world politics, but if something happens in this area, the impact will spread to the world. That is the center of the world politics. Most case, Europe or United States, this area of the center of the world politics. But currently, because of the economic development, Indo-Pacific is also the important area as the center of the world. If the big war has happened in the Indo-Pacific, the impact will spread to the world. That means this area is also the world center of the world politics now. That's why we need a new concept which include both the Pacific Ocean side and Indian Ocean side. That is Indo-Pacific. That's why he introduced this idea. But secondly, this region has been threatened by the China's domination. That is another aspect, and we need to deal with it. And when we think about Indo-Pacific, which before he introduced the idea of the Indo-Pacific, the people used Asia-Pacific, especially after the Cold War. Which area is different? India. So if we include India, what happened? The Indo-Pacific is a concept which includes all of the border dispute with China. Because Asia-Pacific side, traditional Asia-Pacific side, there is a border problem between China and Japan, China and Vietnam, China and other country. But at the same time, if we call this region and as the Indo-Pacific, in this case, India-China border, the Indian Ocean region, these areas are also included. So if we say the Indo-Pacific, this is a concept which can include all of the border dispute with China. And Quad is a group of the great powers in the Indo-Pacific except China. So in all influential countries except China is included. That's why indeed Indo-Pacific and the Quad is a concept of the counter-China strategy. And thirdly, third feature of this idea is, of course, India. Compare the Asia-Pacific, Indo-Pacific include India. Quad is also, India is the most important. Why? Because if we talk about US, Australia, US, Japan, In this case, they are formal ally, treaty-based ally. So there are plenty of chances to cooperate. They do not need a new concept like Quad. Quad is needed because they need new member. They need to include new member, which is India. So India is the most important country of the Quad and Indo-Pacific. So that's why the view from these features, why Japan, why Prime Minister Shinzo Abe introduced Indo-Pacific and Quad? Because India-Japan relation is important, he introduced it. Because how to deal with China is important, he introduced it. Because this region is developing, this idea is needed. So what kind of the concrete impact with the inclusion of India and the vision of the Indo-Pacific and the Quad have in terms of the China strategy is a matter of concern of the India-Japan relations. We can say that there are the three practical methods how to deal with China if we use Indo-Pacific and the Quad. Three is the military way, and economic way, and the value way. So militarily, China's pattern of the territory expansion demonstrates the Indo-Pacific Quad are militarily effective. Look at this map. This map indicates what happened in the South China Sea. Indeed, China's pattern of the territory expansion is based on the power vacuum created by changing military balance. That's why Indo-Pacific Quad is important. In 1950s, what happened? France withdrew from Vietnam, and China took the half of the Paracel Island. In 1970s, U.S. withdrew from Vietnam because of after the U.S. the Vietnam War. China took another half of the Paracel Island. In 1980s, when Soviet troops reduced the number in Vietnam, China took the Spratly Island. China took the 6 feet of the Spratly Island. And the 1990s, when the US withdrew from Philippines, China took Mischief Reef. So when they find the power vacuum created by changing the military balance, they try to take it. So that's why when we think about how to deal with China, we need to maintain military balance. But in this case, when China increase their military expenditure, the country around China also need to catch up the military expenditure to maintain military balance. The problem is China's economy developed very fast, and China is rich. So ample budget China has. And because of the China's decision to invest military very rapid pace, for example, the Indian Navy chief pointed out, last 10 years, China built 148 warships. That is the same size with the Indian Navy. So under such kind of rapid military modernization, it is not easy to catch up the rapid military modernization of China. That's the problem. According to the SIPRI, the think tank in Sweden, pointed out that from 2012 to 2021, so 1 decade, China increased their military expenditure 72%. During the same period, US decreased 6.1%. So how to catch up? That is the reason that we need Indo-Pacific and Quad. If the Indo-Pacific and Quad is a country in the Indo-Pacific, country around China cooperate each other. China need to divide their military expenditure multi-direction against Japan, against India, against Southeast Asia, against something like that. So to maintain military balance, cooperation in the Indo-Pacific, cooperation of the Quad is effective. So to maintain military balance, to deter China's territory expansion, Indo-Pacific and Quad is effective way. We need to look about the economical side. Promoting cooperative relation with India. It's a form of the Indo-Pacific and Quad. will also influence the effectiveness of the economic aspect of the Indo-Pacific strategy, because China's growing influence related to the economic growth. China has been able to rapidly increase military spending because its economy has grown, and its budget has swelled. So this budget is spent not only the defense, but also infrastructure development projects such as the Belt and Road Initiative. Well, some of these infrastructure projects profitable, but simply said that they create the huge debt because of high interest rate. And because of the huge debt, China can control these recipients. That's why the Belt and Road Initiative is not purely the supportive infrastructure project. We call it the debt trap, or these are the purpose is expanding China's influence. So more strategic project. So, and China used economic concern against the countries that criticize it. What happened during the COVID-19 crisis when Australia asked the international community the international investigation, the cause of the COVID-19, China intended to delay the product from Australia, wine, lobster, etc., as an economic sanction. So, because these products rely on the huge China market, China tried to use economical dependence as a weapon of the diplomacy. So these maybe people called, experts called economic coercion. That is the reason, indeed, economy itself is a weapon of China's diplomacy. Under such kind of situations, if the country need to deal with China's territorial expansion, they should not rely on the Chinese market. How to do that? That is the reason Indo-Pacific and Quad. Indo-Pacific, especially including India. India is a very big market. Its economic relation with India promoted. They do not need to rely on Chinese market. They can reduce the dependence on China. That's why China cannot show the influence. So economically, Indo-Pacific and Quad is effective way. Of course, other countries are also important. Cooperation of the Indo-Pacific country can create a huge market like TPP. But if India is a part of it, very powerful method. That's why including India is a matter of concern. And that's why Indo-Pacific and Quad is effective way. About the value. Value is also third part, how effective the Indo-Pacific concept. Indeed, we can remember the one example, what happened in 2016. China is building the artificial island in South China Sea, and the Philippines asked the international court to solve this problem. And the international court, the verdict has published in 2016, which is they doubt the China's claim. And because of this, the building artificial island in South China Sea, legally, China cannot legitimize it. The international court decided. But what happened is simple. China ignored this verdict and continued to build the artificial island. And that time, China say this is not military purpose. But after that, they started to deploy the missile and bomber and prove this is military purpose. So that is the China's way. But what happened between India and Bangladesh in 2040? Yes, Bangladesh, because of the maritime border issue between two countries had exist, Bangladesh asked the international court. That time, India also accepts the verdict from the international court, which relatively favor of the Bangladesh claim. So that is a way under the rule-based order. India show India is a country of the rule-based order. India is not China. That's why including India is very important and valuable. So militarily, as a counter-China strategy, we can divide their military expenditure, China's military expenditure, if we cooperate with India. Economically, the alternative market, including India, is very important. And now value. India is the symbol of the rule-based order. That's why India is the effective way. Cooperation with India is a very important way to deal with China, because China is not accept this kind of rule. China tries to challenge the international system, but India is not. So view from this one, Indo-Pacific and the Quad, this idea is valuable to deal with China. So, but view from this, why Japan focusing on India is very simple. The problem is when Japan tries to promote relation with India, there are some difficulties. Because in some issues, opinion is different. Firstly, India is a traditional ally of the Soviet Union. Former de facto ally of the Soviet Union, and very friendly to Russia. But for Japan, we share the maritime border with Russia. And at the same time, when the Russia's aggression in Ukraine has started, Japan stands with Ukraine. So Japan's stance and India's stance is different. And Russia is a country which opposes the Quad very strong. In every places, the former Minister Lavrov said, Indo-Pacific and the Quad is not constructive. Target is China, containing China, that's not proper. Something like that. So that's why to promote the Quad, Russia's influence is the problem and the matter of concern. So when we check what happened after since Russia's aggression in Ukraine has started, before the Russia start invade Ukraine, of course there are other problems, but the problem has emphasis and revealed in many places. India's stance is try to be neutral. Of course, India did not criticize Russia, but India, the Prime Minister Modi told President Putin, this is not age of war. That is a proper comment, I think, and the proper message to Russia, I think. But at the same time, anyway, India try to be neutral, and Japan stand with Ukraine. That is first difficulties between two countries. And the second difficulty is about China. In the Quad, India is the only country to share land border with China. This means that India need to take risk when India cooperate with other three countries, because of the land border, view from China, it is relatively easy to attack India. If China need to attack Japan, attack Australia, attack United States, they need to cross sea first. So a little far. But land border, very near. It is easy to attack. And if China start to believe Quad is enemy of China, and they need to separate one by one, there is a possibility India could be the first target because of the land border, of course, but because of the US and Japan and the US and Australia, they are treaty-based ally, former ally, so strong bond. So if China attack, but China cannot separate this relation so easily. But India is newcomer, not a former ally of the United States. Still, this link is not so strong. Under such kind of situation, if China try to choose the one country to separate from Quad, of course, India is the most easiest target. Attack in the land border and send a message to India. Quad is not helpful for India. If you join the Quad, I can attack you. And this is not beneficial. Other three countries cannot help India in the land border. So you are alone. You should leave from Quad. Maybe such kind of message China can send by attacking in the India-China border. That's why India do not want to overemphasize the military aspect of the Quad. Repeatedly they say, Quad is not military alliance. Quad is not military alliance. Indeed, in maritime cooperation, Quad, all of the Quad country hold joint exercises like Malabar exercises or the La Perouse, I have already mentioned, French-owned military exercises. But Army or Air Force, they hold exercises jointly, but bilateral basis. Why bilateral basis? Because if the quadrilateral base exercises happen, that kind of exercise send a message to China. Quad is a military alliance against China. It could lead China's attack in the India-China border. So it is not a clever way. So India separated the two cooperation. One is land or air. Another is maritime. So Quad has the potential as a counter-China strategy. So I have explained how to divest China's military budget. At the same time, to promote the Quad, view from India, they do not want to overemphasize the military aspect of the Quad. But view from Japan, Quad should be the military alliance the many military experts in this place believe. That's why this is also the problem between Japan and India. And another third problem, the third difficulty is the view towards the Western countries. Since Russia's aggression to Ukraine, Japan stands with Ukraine with Western countries. But view from India, India was a colony of the British Empire, Western countries. So that's why there are some emotional or maybe traditional rift between, so simply said, India cannot trust the Western countries. So under such kind of situation, view from the process, because the Shinzo Abe, Japanese Prime Minister suggested Quad and Indo-Pacific, it has progressed relatively fast. But if the US President asked India's Indo-Pacific Quad, is this proper Quad India want to join? So Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, personally, they are relatively popular in India, and his idea is very pro-India, trustworthy Asian leader. India believe that's why Quad and Indo-Pacific has promoted that age. But he was assassinated. We lost a proper leader. Under such kind of situation, can we promote this Indo-Pacific and Quad without Prime Minister Shinzo Abe? Because their viewpoint towards Western countries is different. Japan is allied with the United States, and India did not ally with Western countries. Doesn't. So that is another matter of concern. So can Japan cooperate with India? That is another question. Indeed, in this case, final part I need to explain. We need to focusing on the changing part of India. Firstly, about relation with Russia. Indeed, India's dependence on Russia is caused by some special parts. First one is half of the weapons Indian army possess is Russian made or Soviet Union made. The weapon is a very sophisticated machine, but they are using under the rough conditions, so easy to block. So easy to block means that they need repair parts. And especially the weapon, who fires a gun, they need ammunition. So Russia, supply chain from Russia to India is a very important matter. That's why India rely on Russia. If the India need to attack Pakistan or India need to attack fight with China, in this case, if the size of the operation is very big, they need the supply, repair parts of the ammunition from Russia. So, but new changing part of India prove that in the future, it will not so important. So this is personal relation of the Abe and Modi. So okay, this is made by the database of the Sweden think tank, SIPRI. Then the monetary base, which country exports the weapon to India from 1950s and 2020. When we see this,
red one is Russia and the Soviet Union. Yes, for a long time, weapon came from Soviet Union and Russia dominated Indian market. But you can see the blue one. Blue one is the combine of the British, British, United States, and France, and Israel. When we check this blue one and the red one, last 10 years, from 2021 is also included. This is the latest one. So to last 10 years, you can see gradually the blue part is increased and gradually red part is decreased. Now in the 2021, blue part is far bigger than the red one. So view from the weapon India possesses. Currently, Western country is more influential than Russia. Of course, India possesses many old weapons came from Russia. That's why India need to buy repair parts and ammunition from Russia. But India tried to diversify the source, and now the Western country is more influential in the armed structure of the Indian armed forces. So India is changing. Next data is the same type of data, but arms export to China. For a long time, Soviet Union did not export weapon to China because they export weapon to India. There is a rivalry between China and the Soviet Union. And India is Soviet side and China is the other side. That's why the view from India can trust Soviet Union as a friend. But since the 1990s, situation has changed. Soviet Union has collapsed and Russia has appeared, and Russia start to export weapons to China. Red part is Russia's weapon export to China. Monetary base, but monetary value base, but red part is very big. And of course, to contain the Soviet Union in 1980s, 70s, and 80s, Western country cooperated with China. That's true. That's why since 1970s, sometimes you can see China import weapons from Western countries. But last 10 years, blue part, Western country reduced arms export to China. So, but Russia is still increased. Russia is increasing the weapon export to China, and Western country reduced arms export to China. So, Russia-China cooperation is promoting. Under such a situation, to counter China, can India trust Russia? Can India trust Russia? It's changing. Another, Russia explained the weapon to their weapon export to India is better than weapon they export to China. But how to verify this? This is a military secret. If Indian officer visit China and check the Chinese weapon came from Russia, this one is a bad weapon. Can Indian officers check this? No, this is military secret. So Russia's explanation, India cannot trust. But weapon Russia export to China could use against India. That is current situation. Look at this one. Arms export to Pakistan. Yellow one is China's arms export to Pakistan. And blue one is the Western countries. And red one is Russia. Yes, Russia restrict to export a weapon to Pakistan for a long time. But last 10 years, it has increased. Why? Because China's weapon to export to Pakistan is using the Russian parts. For example, the fighter jet, JF-70, which is a joint product between China and Pakistan, or J-10, which is the product of the China and Pakistan imported. Both fighter jets use the Russian engine. So that's why when the fighter jet exported to Pakistan from China, automatically this fighter jet its trade is Russia's export to Pakistan. And so that's why Russia-Pakistan weapon trade has increased now. So of course, in this mean, India cannot trust Russia as a partner. compare with this, Western countries export to Pakistan is declining last 10 years. So that data clearly show. So situation is changing. That's why the relation between India and Russia will not become the so important problem in the future. And another matter is the land border. Land border, because of the land border, not easy to say what is military cooperation. But look at this. Indeed, we can compare with the two regions, East China Sea and India-China border. Chinese vessel identified within the contiguous zone in the water around the Senkaku Island in Japan has increased when we compare the number with Indo-China number in the India-China border, the number of China's incursion in the Indo-China border. I overlapped these two as a one figure. Figure 1 and figure 2 is the same. Indeed, China is provoking Japan and India both at the same time. In 2012, it has increased. After that, steadily, and 2009 increase again. This means that even if India try to limit their overemphasis, the Quad as alliance, China, anyway, that's not so important for China. Anyway, China will increase their activity against Japan and against India at the same time. That's why changing situation proved that indeed this is meaningless. Just care, just managing diplomatically, but not so important for China. And the third side point is, yes, we lost Shinzo Abe, who was popular in India. But Kishida's visit to India last month, he tried to show his efforts, and that was very good. The Indo-Pacific and the Quad, for which India is important. That idea had started from India in 2007 in the Indian Parliament. Last month, Prime Minister Kishida tried to publish new document, which is more detailed plan of the Indo-Pacific concept, vision, and strategy. Any word is okay, but in this case, but he tried to emphasize the more detailed plan. But he published from India because he want to show how important India is in this concept. Start from Indian Parliament, and now detailed plan published in India. That is a message that Japan want to send to India, and I think the Indian side also received this message. I think so. Personal relation between Shinzo Abe and Modi hasn't existed now because Shinzo Abe has assassinated. But Kishida tried to be the alternative and try to show how important is India. So he understands how important India. View from this, three concerns, all of three, Japan tried to solve it. And because of the situation between China and Russia, problem is simply said solving. But that kind of situation is exists. That's why still the Indo-Pacific, the Quad, it's very important concept to decide India-Japan relation and world order, new world order under the US-China competition. So that is maybe viewpoint from Japan. My presentation should be the limit within the 30 to 40 minutes. So a little long, but the start a little late. So maybe nearly 45 minutes I spent, I think. So I should say thank you and finish it. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Dr. Nagao, for your excellent presentation on forging stronger ties, a look at India-Japan defense relations. Your analysis of the strategic partnership between the two countries in terms of military cooperation and technological exchanges was especially insightful. You highlighted the positive impacts of joint exercises, such as the recently concluded joint exercises that happened, and also expressed optimism for further opportunities for bilateral cooperation in the future. Indo-Pacific is the center for world politics, and India and Japan are strong democracies with shared values are well positioned to play a key role in shaping the region's future. The idea of the Indo-Pacific region being a key area of cooperation between India and Japan was intriguing And I agree that the two nations have much to gain from working together in this region. The disputes, including the Indian Ocean region and the South China Sea, are important issues that require a collective effort from regional powers. Quad, as well as other multilateral dialogues, present avenues for increased collaboration and coordination between India and Japan in addressing these challenges. India's role in Quad and the Indo-Pacific cooperation, it actually complements Japan's efforts towards maintaining a free and open Indo-Pacific region. And I believe that they can together work towards promoting stability, security, and prosperity in the region. Including India and Japan's free and open Indo-Pacific vision, it is a very significant step towards creating a stronger strategic, economic, and security alliance between the two countries. As you talked about the three-way cooperation, as it is based on military, economy, and the people-to-people connect. A relationship that you mentioned is crucial for a strong partnership between the two countries. China's advancements in exploiting power vacuums in the Paracel and Spratly Islands remain a concern for the region. And I appreciate your insight on how India and Japan can work together to address this challenge. Military cooperation between India and Japan in conjunction with diplomatic efforts through multilateral forums will be key to countering any threats to regional stability. To deter China's assertiveness, democratic nations in the region need to come together and send a strong message that regional security cannot be compromised. China's BRI initiative, as you talked about, has been a point of concern for the international community, and collaborative efforts must be made to counter its effects. The joint efforts actually of India and Japan in the Indo-Pacific region have the potential to shape not only the future of that region, but the world as well. The Western countries, Russia and China, have already been shaping the world through their efforts and alliances. And it is also very important for democratic nations like India and Japan to join forces together and to ensure that their voices are being heard and taken into consideration. Given the rising tide of geopolitical challenge in the region and the rise and the global stage, it is encouraging to see India and Japan strengthening their strategic partnership through collective efforts on multiple fronts. You also emphasize the importance of maintaining open and inclusive communication channels, and which is very critical for building trust between nations. Overall, your speech deepened our understanding about the India-Japan relationship and provided valuable insights into how both nations can work together, and how they can continue to work together basically towards a safer and more prosperous future. This year will be likely a major milestone for India and Japan relations. And thank you very much for your insights. I look forward to hearing from you in our next Q&A segment. Now let's take some questions from our students. As you mentioned about Prime Minister Abe, right? So what do you think? What potential challenges does Japan face in attracting India without their Prime Minister Abe? And what strategy could they use to strengthen their relationship with India against China?
Okay, so I did not explain the situation Japan is facing. So in this case, this is a map of China's activity around Japan. Red line is naval and air routes China is using around Japan. So since 2008, especially, China repeatedly entered the Japan territory area. So, and even if they did not enter the territory area, their activity it looks like surrounding Japan. This is a map based on Japan's Ministry of Defense white paper, Defense of Japan. You can see it online, but this map itself is maybe I made myself based on this information. So you can see the red route. The Chinese warship is surrounding Japan or crossing the Japan southwestern island. They try to go first island chain to second island chain, which is China's defense line. So China increased warship. Number of warship. I mentioned about the last 10 years, they increased 148, the size of the Japanese Navy. But that is not only the concern for Japan. The activity itself is expanding. And this route I wrote in this figure is indicating China is deploying the forces around Japan and surrounding Japan. And so Japan start to feel China's activity is a threat for Japan. Why China has done is the view from China, there is a reason. So China try to protect their core area, the coastal cities, from the United States. If the United States approach from Hawaii or the western side of the Pacific, they'll come to these coastal cities through these lines. Firstly, they enter the second island chain, which from the Japan to the Guam to the Southeast Asia, and another line in front of the core area of China, the cities of China, is Japan, the Taiwan, the Philippines, and the South China Sea. That is first island chain. So when the U.S. approach to China, China is waiting and intercept Chinese U.S. forces and stop it. That is China's idea. That's why China tried to expand their naval ship, weapons, and deploy this area. But view from Japan, this is a threat for Japan. Because firstly, Japan is the US side. So US base in Japan and the cooperation with the United States could be the target of China. And secondly, the activity has happened just side of Japan. If the Japan is the US side, China's activity is a bigger threat. So China's logic to defend their coastline is, China say this is defensive. But if China ignore Japan's opinion, this is too arrogant Japanese thing. For example, because of this, China, for example, if China start to say, China forced other countries to accept one China policy, Taiwan is part of it. View from Taiwan, view from Japan, view from the other country, which can see the fact Taiwan is already independent. This we can respect. This is China's logic. But we cannot accept. This is fact. Because Taiwan is independent. But China try to demand our idea should be your idea. Taiwan is not independent just now. Such kind of attitude itself is a threat for Japan. Along with China's rapid military modernization, along with China's economic development, their logic, they try to force their claim to us. So China's attitude looks like, we are the world, you are not. That's why, because of this attitude, we start to worry their military activity could be the threat for Japan. Because of this, we need the strategy to deal with China. That is the starting. That is the background. So in this PowerPoint is PowerPoint prepared for other time, but this is maybe your question is you are asking what kind of situation Japan is facing. That's why this is the map. This is activity. What happened in Japan?
No, I actually meant in terms of I was actually asking, as you know, previously Prime Minister Abe was there, but how Japan actually Japan is facing challenges in terms of attracting India without Prime Minister Abe. So I was asking that what strategy could they actually use to strengthen their relation with India against China?
Well, India's the problem with China is traditional one, so it is no doubt. In my opinion, before the Shinzo Abe was sworn in, indeed the Japanese government's policy toward India is just following the US. Because, for example, I mentioned in my lecture, the Prime Minister Yoshiro Mori visited India and re-established relation with India after the economic sanction towards India's nuclear test was happened just after the President Clinton's visit to India. Indeed, every time we check Japan's diplomatic activity, especially toward India, they try to follow the US move. More economic, the business-related issues are little different, slightly different. But the political move is they try to follow or they try to adjust the situation created by US side. But in case of the Shinzo Abe, he is different. He suggests the idea and the US accept after that. That was the Indo-Pacific and Quad. He is a creative politician, and he shows a good leadership in the world level. So his character is different. That's why the relation between India and Japan has changed, transformed under the Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. Prime Minister Shinzo Abe creates a course, and now the Japanese followers, like the Prime Minister Kishida, is following his idea. So in the past, Japan's policy is more rely on the US, I think, but it has changed under the Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. And originally, he was very pro-India. I believe because why he was pro-India, because he was a little nationalistic person. And China and South Korea especially criticize Japan's past again and again. And that is not comfortable for him. But during that time, the India's attitude is completely different. They admire Sebastian robots or Japan's past was not a bad image for in India. So as a nationalist, relatively right, Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, India is a very attractive country. And that was the starting point, I believe. But after that, the more they research about India, the more he loves India. So that's why when Prime Minister Shinzo Abe was sworn in, he have already loved India. And he find the idea how to include India when they face a threat of China. And his idea that China could be the threat for the world, or China will challenge the world rule-based order. He tried to persuade many countries, but before he tried to persuade many countries, he visited India and published his idea related to Indo-Pacific and Quad in 2007. So because of this, his influence toward this situation is very big. That is my opinion. So traditionally, Japan's policy is relatively rely on US, but he changed.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nagao. Coming to the next question. So despite being an economic powerhouse, why does Japan show reluctance in countering China's economic influence in various countries?
Economic power is very limited now. Still, of course, Japan is a very important power. But at the same time, in 2000, that was 2010, I think, so maybe China crossed the Japan's GDP. China's GDP is bigger than the Japan's GDP in the 2010. Now 3 times big, I think. China's rapid economic growth is very fast paced. So that's why 10 years ago, we can say Japan's economic power is very strong. But now we cannot say Japan's economy is so strong. Japan is still number 3. Japan's GDP is world number 3 level. But there is very big gap between 2 and 3. So last 10 years, world has changed. Of course, last 30 years, world has changed. But last 10 years, it is very big for Japan. Of course, in the Southeast Asia, which country accept infrastructure, which country's infrastructure project the Southeast Asian country accept? Indeed, Japan's influence is bigger than China. China's infrastructure project size is big, but not workable in most cases. So Southeast Asian country choose the Japan's project in most cases. So that's why still Japan has influence in Southeast Asia. But when we check the last 10 years, anytime we lose this status in the Southeast Asia because China's expansion is very fast paced. That is the answer.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nagao. Next question. What are your perspectives on India's efforts to export defense equipment to other countries, which could potentially compete with Japan's defense exports?
Japan's defense export is not influential. Japan has succeeded the exporting the radar system toward the Philippines and donating the training plane for Philippines, and the Philippines use this training plane as a patrol plane, or the donating some the Coast Guard cutters, or some country, Vietnam, Sri Lanka, the Philippines, the Indonesia. That's all. So Japan failed to export the US-2 seaplane to India. Japan failed to export the engine of the tanks to Turkey. Japan failed to export the submarine to Australia. All of them Japan failed. So Japan's armed export is, as a business, this is nothing indeed. Japan need to learn how to export arms to other country, or Japan will start a new project, the official security assistance, instead of the ODA. ODA is non-military purpose, but OSA, official security assistance, to support armed forces in the country around China, including Bangladesh, including Indonesia, Malaysia, or Fiji, and the South Pacific. So these 4 countries will be the first country, and Japan will export radar system or Areto. But that's all. So that's all. So in the future, Japan's export will be influential, but so far, this is nothing. So India's weapon export is developing relatively fast. India is exporting the BrahMos missile to Philippines. This is supersonic speed, very latest anti-ship missile, and they can attack the land target also. And India has the advantage to teach and train the crew of the submarine or pilot of the fighter jet of the Soviet origin in Southeast Asia or Middle East. So that's why armed export from India to other countries is just beginning, but already started, and some successful example as exist, not like Japan. India has succeeded, and as export of the know-how, how to use, know-how, software, one kind of software part. In this case, India has succeeded in many places. So that's why India's arms export is already some level, mature, some kind of mature level. Yes, compare with other China, compare with America, this is limited. But compare with Japan, India has advantage, I think. So if the competition has happened, India has the advantage. And in addition, we need to say, because India and Japan is the same side, if we export something else, we can collaborate because same country we want to support. Arms export is not a purely business. There are military secret. In some cases, just donate. In some cases, they demand a very high price. So this is not fair trade. This is a political trade. If so, if the political interest India and Japan shared, we can deal. So we can collaborate to produce the products and export to this country, third country. It's possible because this is a political trade. That's why there's a few possibilities India and Japan compete in the arms trade, I think.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nagao, for your detailed response on this. Coming to the next question. So can the Indo-Pacific region rely on the Western countries during the times of conflict?
If US and China escalate this competition, I think Western side is far better than the China side. Of course, currently, for example, the Southeast Asia's attitude or India's attitude is try to be neutral. Of course, India cooperate with Quad more, and we cannot imagine India cooperate with China. But at the same time, India need to cooperate still cooperate with Russia, and of course, Southeast Asian countries also cooperate with Russia. For example, Vietnam's cooperation with Russia, or the Indonesia buys the weapon from Russia. So this example we can easy to find. So, and Southeast Asian countries' economy, when we check, they rely on trade with China. Of course, the biggest trading partner of India is United States, but second biggest is China. So, view from such kind of situation, still many countries want to cooperate with China economically. So, under such kind of situation, suddenly the United States demand Japan should decouple with China economically. Southeast Asian countries should decouple with China. India should decouple with China. It will be very big shock for these countries, and it is not easy to do. So, but in the long run, we should do that, I believe, because view from the U.S. history, once United States start to say that China is the most serious competitor, this competition will be escalate. One shall stand and one shall fall. Because look at this 250 years history. In the long history, not long history of the United States, but 250 years ago, United States is just one of the colony of the British Empire. But now they are the only one superpower. How to do that? Because compete with rivals and win. All of the rivals, like Japan, Germany, Soviet Union, any rivals hasn't survived, did not when the US compete with them, only United States survived and the other rival has gone. That was US history. So if China want to survive, only two choices. If China win the competition with US, they can survive, or they need to change to the completely other country. Soviet Union has collapsed in the 15, Soviet Union has collapsed, and now 15 countries we can find as a former Soviet Union. So view from such kind of history, US history, US-China competition will be escalated in the future. If the country like Japan, India, and Southeast Asia rely on trade with China, our economy will be passenger of the sinking ship. So in the long run, we need to decouple with trade with China. Without this, we will sink with China. That is maybe my expectation.
Thank you so much, Satoru, for your great inputs. Next question. So what do you think, in what ways can Japan's technological capability and India's demographic dividend be leveraged for further cooperation between the two countries?
Yes, it has already started. For example, the new technology, especially AI, artificial intelligence. Now, maybe there are some people who have already tried Chat GPT. Yes, AI is developing very fast. But indeed, between India and Japan, they have already agreed to collaborate in this area. Indeed, India and Japan has already started the unmanned vehicle development project between the Indian Ministry of Defense and Japan's Ministry of Defense. This kind of the unmanned weapon, unmanned equipment, including the AI collaboration, because without software, robot cannot move. So AI-related collaboration between India and Japan has a very important part of the collaboration now. Of course, other area is also important. A new technology area, they have cooperated very much indeed. And so is there some area that India and Japan collaborated as a joint technological project? My answer is yes. It has started, it will expand. That is my answer.
Thank you so much, Satoru. As you talked about AI and technology, so there also is a question for cybersecurity. And along with this, there's a question of counterterrorism efforts also and intelligence sharing. So how do you think, how can India and Japan collaborate on counterterrorism efforts, intelligence sharing, and cybersecurity to address common security threats and challenges in the present day?
That has also started in cyber security related issue as bilaterally and quadrilaterally, in both cases, their dialogue has formalized and repeatedly they negotiated. In this area, because cyber security is two types of the enemy we need to expect. The first one is just a personal one, but another one is national level. And currently, national level threat is very big because they are well organized. They developed sophisticated virus and intendedly they can use. So that's why sharing information and identify who attack us is very important. Of course, they try to disguise who attack cybersecurity. In the cybersecurity, they use third computer to attack, for example, attack Japan. In this case, they use a computer in Malaysia, but indeed came from North Korea. Such kind of situation has happened. So in this case, how to identify who is the perpetrator? The first time the Japan believed that this virus came from Malaysia. Yeah, Malaysia attacked us. But indeed, real enemy, real perpetrator is North Korea. So in this case, so how to identify who attack us is very difficult in the cybersecurity. If the India and the Japan share the information, more accurately we can identify who is the perpetrator. So, so cybersecurity area, sharing information and how to create a counter-virus, and in some case, if this is a national level attack, we need to retaliate. In this case, maybe when or what kind of the virus we'll use. But this kind of things we need to collaborate in the ally and partners. Without this, for example, if the United States send the virus, computer virus as a retaliation, this virus will spread to the other ally and partners as a collateral damage. That is not good. So that's why the collaboration and collaborate operation is better to deal with national level cyber attack.
Thank you so much for your response, Satoru. Following to the same question, can you put some light on how India and Japan can coordinate on maritime security as well? Because there are challenges in the Indo-Pacific region, which include issues such as freedom of navigation, joint patrols, and capacity building efforts. So how both of them can coordinate?
Okay, firstly, I have already pointed that militarily we can divide China's defense budget. But in this case, not only the collaboration between East China Sea and the Indo-China border, but also the Indian Ocean or Southeast Asia is matter. For example, in the Indian Ocean, China is expanding influence because they can find a power vacuum. No one take it. U.S. Navy do not show the strong presence in the Indian Ocean. In the past, they show, but now the U.S. Military presence is not so strong. So China is penetrating in the Indian Ocean. Under such kind of situation, the US or Japan, their serial communication is run in the Indian Ocean. That's why they need to share more warship to patrol in the Indian Ocean. But if this means that same ship, the US and Japan can deploy in the Pacific side. So that time, India's role is very important. If the US and Japan rely on Indian Navy in the security in the Indian Ocean, they do not need to share the many ships for the Indian Ocean security. They can use these ships to maintain military balance in the Pacific side. That's why Indian Navy's role in the Indian Ocean help the USA, Japan, Australia. That is one thing. Another one is Southeast Asia. So China's territorial expansion happened where most? Southeast Asia, especially South China Sea. So in this case, if the Southeast Asian country has a strong military power, they can maintain the balance and China cannot expand the influence. That's why the Japan supports Southeast Asia armed forces, Australia support, American support. But in this case, India's support is very big. I have already mentioned India supports Vietnam's fighter jet training, submarine crew training, or Malaysia's Air Force fighter jet training, or in the Indonesia, the maintenance of the Russian-made fighter jet Su-30 is took by the India. So that's why took responsibility by India. So that's why the Indonesia, Vietnam, Malaysia, now Philippines, this country received the Indian support. So that's why that if so, to strengthen security of the defense power of the Southeast Asia, India's role is big. So Quad countries should collaborate. So US support, Australia support, Japan support, India also supports Southeast Asia, and in this case, China need more resources against Southeast Asia, and this means that China cannot use the same resource against Japan, against India. So that's why collaboration is effective way. So in the Indian Ocean, we rely on India. In Southeast Asia, we rely on India. So as a maritime security, this area, not only the India-China border and Eastern Sea, but also the Southeast Asia, Indian Ocean, we should cooperate. That is one thing, but if I need to add one more, in case of Taiwan issue, India's role exists too. China is planning to invade Taiwan, we believe, because of their military buildup. In this case, if India sends the aircraft carrier and fighter jet to support Taiwan, of course it is good, but we cannot expect such kind of situation. Even if under such kind of situation, India's role is very big in this case, because militarily, yes, there is India-China border. If the China need to divide their military resources against India and Taiwan at the same time. In this case, militarily, India-China border is helpful for Taiwan. But economically, also important, because if the countries not rely on the Chinese market, instead of this, they rely on the Indian market. In this case, when China try to invade Taiwan, they need to calculate, that country rely on India, not China. That's why they will show the strong stand toward China if the China invade Taiwan. And diplomatically, India's stance toward Taiwan has changed and try to raise the international status of Taiwan now. Since 1995, India starts the diplomatic relation with Taiwan, and since 2008, India stopped to mention about one China policy in public document. And 2020 was the first time the India sent the delegation to join the inauguration ceremony of the President Tsai Ing-wen. So 1 month after this inauguration ceremony, Galwan Valley incident has happened. But indeed, under the Modi government, India raised Taiwan's international status. If Taiwan's international status rise, it looks like the independent country. When China attacked Taiwan, this country will support Taiwan because this is an invasion. This is a violation of the international law. So that's why, viewed from militarily, economically, and diplomatically, India's role to deter China's invasion toward Taiwan is very influential. That's why this is also the part of the maritime security. I mentioned that. I should mention that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Satoru, for your analytical response. Next question is, can you share some insights on the recent ruling by the World Trade Organization that found India in violation of global trade regulations, which was actually raised as a concern by Japan, the EU, and other countries?
World Trade Organization or World something, the organization is reducing the influence, unfortunately. In the past, especially maybe at least some years ago, until some years ago, since the end of 2017 or 2018, international organization is very influential, especially since the 1990s, after the Cold War. But these kind of international organizations, if the great powers fight each other inside of the international organization, they cannot decide anything. For example, one of the typical examples is the United Nations. Now, United States and Russia fight each other inside. And under such kind of situation, anything cannot decide. For example, the economic sanction against North Korea. North Korea tests many missiles, but no economic sanction imposed North Korea. No additional economic sanction was imposed North Korea because Russia and China battle any decision in the UN Security Council. So age of the international organization has happened because US was the only superpower and no other country resisted. That age, it has worked. But since then, it hasn't worked because two strong or three strong powers fight each other, and that's all in the international system. So currently, yes, this is not meaningless. The negotiation table itself is meaningful, but they cannot decide anything. International organizations lose their influence now. Unfortunately, this is the situation.
Thank you so much, Satoru. In your presentation, you talked about China's military spending and also the maintenance of military balance in the Indo-Pacific region. So how do you think that how the possible cooperation between Japan and India can affect, China's military spending and, can actually deter it in a way? Yeah.
Maybe this is the topic of my presentation. Simply said that China's pattern of territorial expansion is some features, especially we can compare with Russia's territorial expansion. Russia is burglar and China is thief. Russia is burglar, which means that they find a chance, they use the military power. But China is not so brutal. China's way of territorial expansion is looks like water, we can call, and the thief, I can say. They find the space and penetrate. So that's why power vacuum is the matter. That's why the do not create a power vacuum is the matter. That's why the maintaining military balance do not create a power vacuum is the matter. So do not create the power vacuum. So how to do that? China's defense spending is rising very fast. That's why, as another method, we should divide their defense budget. And we should divide means that China disperse their military expenditure, and even if their budget is very ample, but relatively easy to deal with. That is the logic. But of course, we should increase the defense budget. Next 5 years, Japan increase our defense budget to 56%. Why? Because we start to think we need to increase. But at the same time, according to CIPRI's last decade, China increased military expenditure 72%. So is that 56% of the Japan's defense increased? Is it enough? I don't think so. But better than nothing. That is my answer. So that's all.
Thank you so much. Next question is, how did Japan's decision to double its defense budget in December amid Chinese aggression and the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war impacted the Indo-Pacific region?
Yes, Russia's aggression to Ukraine is promoting the effect of the relation between China and Russia. Because since Russia's aggression to Ukraine, Russia is under economic sanctions, and Russia rely on China now. For example, as a customer of their energy resources, Russia's economies rely on the exporting energy and weapon. So customer is very important, but under the economic sanction, customer is limited to China. Of course, India increased, but still the India's import is limited. China accepts a huge amount of energy resources from Russia. And so without China, Putin cannot survive. And now China hasn't, or Russia hasn't published agreement between two. But some revealed documents indicate that Russia and China has already agreed, and China will support or export ammunition to Russia or weapon to Russia, but step by step to avoid the U.S. economic sanction toward China. So recently, after the Xi Jinping's visit Moscow, Defense Minister of China visit Moscow. Why? Because Xi Jinping agreed something, and Defense Minister need to materialize it. That's why this is after the Xi Jinping's visit, Defense Minister of China need to visit. So view from this, step by step, it will happen. This means that this is deal. Just gives a weapon. It's not a deal. So maybe Russia gives China the more military technology or something as a deal. So China and Russia they collaborate very deeply.
I actually asked you regarding, Japan's decision to double its defense budget, when in December it happened. And it was amid the Chinese aggression and also the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war. So how it has impacted the Indo-Pacific region? The question was that.
Okay, that is a very big impact. And now Russia is donating or giving the North Korea the engine of the missiles, we think. So North Korea tests many missiles. Why? Because they have many engines. Because view from Russia, that is welcome. Because Russia concentrates their military resources against Ukraine now. So other area of the Russia, they can not prepare enough resources to defend it. Under such kind of situation, they need to show the strong stance and hide the fact. There is no troops. This means that we are weak. That is not the situation. They try to show the strong presence even if the number is limited. And it looks like they are strong. That's why no one will attack us. So Russia try to concentrate the military resources in Ukraine. But despite this, there are many military activities in the other area of Russia to warn the other country, do not attack me. So that's why in the Pacific side, in front of Japan, Russia's military activity is very, very active now. And they support North Korea to fire missiles. They support it. Because in this case, Japan was intimidated. Wow, Russia is very active. North Korea is very active. China is very active. Oh, we cannot attack Russia from east side. Indeed, Japan do not have the intention to attack Russia. But view from Russia, Russia thinks, Japan is not trustworthy country, something like that. So they need to warn that. In front of Norway or Finland, they do same. So that's why we can understand. They want to concentrate military resources to Ukraine. That's why military activity of the other area is so active. So under such a situation, Japan faced a very big military threat from three countries at the same time: Russia, China, and North Korea. So all of three are very active in this region. So Japan need to deal with such kind of situation. We need to increase the defense budget, but that is not enough. Double is overestimated. In the double, we try to be, but we cannot find enough money. So that's why the other sections budget, for example, the cost budget for the Coast Guard, budget for the other ministry, combined as a defense budget, and we will say this is 2% of the GDP, not 1% traditionally. But this is not really 2%. This is the combined one, and originally this one not defense budget. Real number is 56%. So 1.5 times, not two times, unfortunately. But we want to show the 2 times because to strength, it looks like this is strong. 2 times is better than the 1.5 times, but reality is 1.5 times.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nagao. Next question is, do you believe that India is adopting skills training from Japan as a means to enhance its capabilities and strength in the future?
Of course, India, Japan should collaborate. In each area, each country has the advantage. In case of Japan, for a long time, we tried to deal with China, especially sea area. We know the many information about military ship of China. For example, to identify submarine, sound of the skill is very important. Sound of the sea is very important. If India Japan collaborate, India can get information related to Chinese submarine. But at the same time, in the land border, India know how to deal with China's incursions. For a long time, India faced China's threat, and so India has a know-how too. And counterinsurgency operation, India is a well-known country, well experienced, and well-known how to deal with. That's why many countries visit India to learn about it. So strong points each country had, and we should exchange it, and we should promote the relation and the capability. So India and Japan has a huge potential. And especially new technologies are asked in this Q&A, but this will be the new area, and technology developed by human scientists. But in case of India, India itself developed their technology, that's true, but at the same time, many Indian origin scientists in the world shows very good performances. So that's why not only India, as the Indian network of corporation, India has the technology. So Japan has the technology, we think, but India has technology also. So we should develop each other. We should collaborate each other. That is beneficial for all of us, I think.
Yes, thank you so much, Satoru. Next question is, do you think that while Indians hold Japan in high regard, so Japanese people may not reciprocate the same level of sentiments towards Indians?
Of course, a perceptual gap is exists. Simply said, for example, the good example is Thai. This is the Thai. There is India in the map. But we cannot find Japan in the map because Japan is too far from India. So, indeed, India and Japan, we cannot collaborate because we are too far. How to go in India from Japan? How to go Japan from India? We need to cross the Southeast Asia first and reach it. Or we need to cross by airplane. But in this case, we need to cross China. So big guys exist. We cannot see backside each other. Big guys, China. So under such kind of situations, there is a perceptual gap that is natural. But this is natural even if the neighbors. So just forget the differences, we focusing on same perception and collaborate. That is the way. Very simple. Even if the France and Germany, they can agree in some case. They cannot agree in some case, I should say. Even if the neighbor, they have the problem. So such kind of far, it is easy to find the differences, but at the same time, we can find the similarities too. So the diplomatic way is just focusing on similar perception. That's all.
Yes, you are actually saying the right thing. I agree with you on this. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Satoru Nagao, for being here today with us. We had an informative and interesting discussion on today's theme, Forging Stronger Ties, a look at Indian-Japan defense relations. We appreciate your insights on the history, current state, and the future of India-Japan defense relations. As we conclude this discussion, it's clear that India and Japan have come a long way in building their defense ties. Both countries share core principles and understand the importance of regional stability, which has been a driving force in their partnership. With China's growing assertiveness in the Indo-Pacific, India and Japan now face new strategic challenges, but are ready to counter them together. India and Japan need to continue strengthening their ties through increased cooperation, knowledge exchange, and joint ventures. We look forward to hosting more such engaging and informative sessions in the future, and sure as students of the International Diploma course on Diplomacy in Indian Foreign Policy have gained valuable insights and knowledge from your presentation. Thank you for your time today, Dr. Satoru Nagao, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. I would also like to thank our students for being so active, for their participation and engagement in today's session. Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Thank you very much.